Thanks, Rishi. I think before I get into the statement, I'll just maybe continue from what Renu and Sanjeev were talking about. With a background in the public sector, I represent probably a large group of organizations in the country which believe in retaining their talent from induction till retirement, and a population of people who believe in joining and retiring from the same organization. So that's very surprising. And I spent quite a few years in a public sector undertaking where I had most of my initial learning and growth. Now, how effectively are they running their ecosystems is another topic. Their learning ecosystems, or how effectively are they grooming their talent, is another topic, which a topic of discussion for another day. But having said that, they are doing something right. A large number of public sector undertakings are still staying afloat in spite of being open to competition from the private sector and from global players. And some of them are actually doing quite well. So there is definitely something right happening there. And I think many of the large corporations like the Tatas or L&T or many other companies also, you have a large number of people who spend significant parts of their working life in one organization. So that's something we need to think about. Now, coming to your statement, I think I'll look at it in two parts. The first one was about women's enrollment in job-oriented learning. I think, to put it very generally, I think, if I may say so, women in general have proven to be, better learners than men. I think that's a general statement I would make across the board. And maybe it's in the DNA. They're just great learners. And I think if you look around, the evidence is all around you. You look at all levels. You look at the exams. The 10th, 12th. You look at CBSE, ICSE, or any of the state boards. Without any deviation, the girls outperform the boys in all of these tests of intelligence, or whatever you call it. And I think women are inclined towards learning. Women learn languages much better than men. I remember my parents, both native Tamilians, spent 40 years in Odisha, and at the end of 40 years, my father couldn't speak a single word of Odia, and my mother, maybe 2 years into her life there, was speaking like a native. So it comes, naturally. And if you look at adoption to online learning systems, I think 5 or 6 years back, one of the organizations I was working with, we launched an e-learning platform, and a year or two into it, when we kind of assessed the uptake of online and e-learning, we found that across the board, both in terms of number of courses being taken up, as well as in terms of the spread of the variety of courses being taken, we found women outscoring men. Another thing that which was interesting was that if you look at the skills report which are getting published from time to time in India, you find that in terms of employability, women still outscore men. And I think the recent report, which the India Skills report, says about 55% of women are found to be employable, 55% of the employable population, and the number for men is just 45. So there is something there. So learning is something that women prioritize more than men, and therefore I think there's no surprise that the uptake for learning has been great among women. When it comes to work, probably the biases which unfortunately still continue to exist in the Indian companies, in Indian workplaces. Women haven't had the same opportunities for pursuing learning opportunities that the men have had under the traditional classroom models of training. And I think COVID has opened out these possibilities. Online learning has opened out that world of learning possibilities for women, and therefore it is no surprise that given their inclination for learning, Indian women have taken to online courses in a big way. So I think that was part one of your statement. The second piece is around women not getting back to work after the pandemic. And I think the pandemic really affected us in more ways than we can ever imagine. And I think the first wave of the COVID pandemic, there were lots of knee-jerk reactions from companies, knee-jerk responses from organizations. And one of the things that we did roll out immediately without thinking too much about it was work from home. And I think we at that time, I remember, every boss of ours was so proud to talk about the new normal and how everything has to get into the new normal and all that. So what we did was we went into a new normal with most of our managers still operating out of the old normal. Our managers were not really trained or equipped to handle remote working. So that was a big problem. And we put people to work out of home, and the managers had no clue as to how to handle their teams who were working out of home. And therefore, there were unreasonable demands on time. Managers really thought that the teams were privileged to work out of home. Therefore, we could demand anything out of them. Unreal deadlines because you had the entire day to work. It became a 24-hour work day. Therefore, the line between work and personal space became so blurred, and I guess work from home really did more harm than good. Through all of this, I thought women actually bore the brunt of all this because women were much more deeply affected. And needless to say, they were juggling multiple roles, being the primary caregivers in the midst of the pandemic, looking after elderly parents, young children, juggling demanding work schedules. So all of this, I think, took its toll. And having gone through all that, I think I could say that possibly women are possibly re-evaluating their lives, uh, probably recalibrating their priorities. And through all of this, women who come from households which can manage comfortably with one income would probably reprioritize and reevaluate their future as to whether this is worth all of it. Uh, there are several considerations. Perhaps it is time to reconnect with family. Children have been at home for almost the whole of the last 2 years. Mothers would want to spend time with their kids. Perhaps it's time to pursue new hobbies which they've always wanted to pursue. Perhaps it's time to start something on your own, start a new venture. The possibilities are endless. And I think this is the time when women are going to think about this and decide whether they wish to get back to the traditional workplace again or they would prefer to do something else on their own.